the channel. This is Brent with Wide Open Moto. Today we are going to be doing a fuel pump change on a 2006 Suzuki GSXR 1000. And the fuel pump that we're going to be using here is going to be a Quantum fuel pumps. This is a great aftermarket brand for a fuel pump replacement. It comes with everything you need in the box. It comes with the fuel pump, the fuel filter, and everything you're going to need. Hose clamps, hoses, the wires, and obviously your fuel pump, fuel filter. This can fit multiple bikes, so they do provide different filters for each application. So let's get to it and get the pump out of the bike. So for today's 2006 Suzuki GSXR fuel pump replacement, these are the tools that we're going to need for the job. The first is going to be an HPF 382S-U fuel pump from Quantum Fuel Systems, and that's going to be our new fuel pump. We're going to use a small pick, a small flathead screwdriver, a number 2, I believe, Phillips bit, 1/4 inch impact bit, an 8mm socket, a 3/8 inch impact bit, a number 5 Allen bit, a 3/8 ratchet, and a 7mm open-ended wrench. And then also my trusty DeWalt impact driver that I like to use for pretty much everything in here. So you'll see me using this quite a bit. It's a great tool to have around the garage to make your jobs easier and quicker. The first thing we're gonna do on getting the tank off is we're gonna remove the seat and the plastic side fairings. Now, on most bikes, you're gonna probably have all the parts and all the screws there. However, on some people's bikes, they're gonna be missing parts. So what we're gonna do, I believe this is missing the seat screw right here, but I'm gonna still show you how to remove the plastic piece. Now on a GSXR, this plastic piece, all it does is you're gonna pull it out just a little bit and you're gonna slide it back and it's gonna pop right off. Just like that. So you have a tab here, locks into here. When you're putting it back on, you're gonna just slide it right in like that. Be careful with these, they do break, especially these inner tabs. So just make sure you're careful when removing these. Now, as I said, the screw for the seat is missing on this side. However, on the other side, it's going to be a 5mm hex head. I like to use these. It makes it really easy to pull stuff on and off. So let's pull the bolt out. So one bolt, there should be 2, and then the seat will just pop right off. So we're gonna set this aside, and now we have 2 more bolts here in the front. On this bike particularly, they're going to be an 8mm bolt. On other bikes, it can be the same 5mm hex head over here. So we're going to pull these out. Just like that. And set them off to the side. And at this point, your tank's only held on by one last bolt down here. But before we remove that, we're gonna come underneath the tank and we're gonna disconnect the fuel line and the clip for the fuel pump. So we're gonna lift the fuel tank up and we are gonna disconnect your fuel line, which is right here, and the actual pump electronics, which is right here. Now, the easiest way to remove these clips is you just squeeze. There's gonna be 2 tabs. Might be hard to see in the video, but you have a tab on the bottom and you have a tab on the top. All you're gonna do is squeeze those. What I like to do is push the hose in a little bit and then pull it right out. It should come right out very easily. Now, if you're forcing it, you probably don't have the clip pushed in all the way. You don't wanna force these. You don't wanna break this hose. It's expensive to replace. And on some bikes, this is gonna be a plastic tube, and if you pull on it too hard, you'll break it, and then you'll have to replace the whole fuel pump housing. Now, for the connection for the fuel pump, there is going to be a little tab, as you can see it right here at the end of my pick, and that needs to be pushed in to disconnect the cables. So sometimes you can do it by hand, but what I like to use is a pick sometimes to help make it easier to remove. But on this bike, I believe it's going to come out pretty easily. So disconnected. So now our fuel tank is completely disconnected. As you can see, there are a couple holes for vent lines down here. On this particular bike, they've been removed. So if you have to remove the hoses, make sure to pull your hoses off of the vent lines down here. Put it up on the workbench. Usually like to lay a towel down so that you're not scratching the surface of the paint, and you'll tilt it up on its side. There is just a little bit of fuel left in there. If there's too much fuel, you can watch the video about how to siphon out gas out of a gas tank, and again, there'll be a link to the siphon that I like to use on that. This one, there's not going to be enough fuel in here to come out of the pump housing, so we're just going to pull the pump out. The fuel's already drained, so we're going to do that right now. Again, 5mm Allen head on the bottom. I believe you have 5 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And just be careful of all your wiring down here. So let's pull these out really quick. And your pump's gonna come right out. Now when you're pulling the pump out, you need to be careful. You are going to spill gas, so just be careful with that. But you do need to be careful because you have the float for your fuel gauge is going to be at the top of the pump. And sometimes you have to wiggle it out a little bit. But make sure to be careful that you don't bend or break the float off of the pump. So we're going to wiggle this out. And this is your fuel gauge. Will go up and down and tell your engine how much, tell your computer how much gas is in the bike. So this is the fuel pump assembly. Today we're just going to be replacing the fuel pump, the filter below there, and I think that's about it on this pump. Some of them are going to be a little bit different. There's going to be O-rings and whatnot that need to be replaced. But on this specific bike, we're just going to do the pump and the filter that's down below. So let's do that. We're going to move the tank out of the way and we'll get this on the bench here. So what I like to do is sometimes I like to take a picture of where the wires are connected. As you can see, you have a ground wire here, another ground wire here, and then your power wires here. What I like to do is I do like to take a picture of the orientation of the power wires. That way, after you take it apart and it's been 20, 30, 40 minutes and you're putting it back together, you don't forget which wire goes where. So take a quick picture, then you know exactly where everything's at. But for right now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by removing the 2 ground wires using a Phillips head bit. So we're nice and easy. We're gonna just pull one screw out, and there's a clip back there, so I like to pull the clip off. We'll set those back on the bench, and we're gonna go around to the other side, and we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. So now we've got both of those removed. The next thing we're going to do is disconnect the 2 wires right here. So this is going to be a 7mm wrench. So we're going to grab a 7mm and we're going to pull those off. So now we got our 7mm wrench. We're going to very easily, you don't want to break these, so you just need to be very careful. They shouldn't be super tight, but they should just come off nice and easy. And once you get them going, you can probably remove them by hand. Like that. And you be careful because this one has a washer on it, the other one does not. So we've got that, and then we're going to do the second one. And like I said, a picture is great when you're doing this because then you don't forget which wire goes where. Pull off that washer also, and then both of your wires are disconnected. So now your pump is basically free from the rest of the housing. So what you're going to want to do, and it's a little bit tricky sometimes, there's a O-ring in here that will hold it all together. This one should come apart pretty easily, but you might struggle. Just be careful when you're pulling it apart not to pull on anything too hard or break it. And if there is, figure out why it's binding up. So we're going to just wiggle and pull up on this. And it'll just come right apart. Now you can see this O-ring right here. If in the quantum fuel pump replacement, we are gonna replace it if there's a replacement. If not, these can be reused. Now if you look down inside of here, you can see how much dirt and grime is in his fuel pump, which is why we're having issues with his bike staying running. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean that out. We're going to use a little bit of carburetor cleaner and a paper towel, and we're going to get this as clean as possible. So when we put the new fuel pump and new filter in, it is not going to suck all that gunk up. So I'm going to do that really quick. We're going to spray just a little bit of carb cleaner in here. And we're going to grab a paper towel and we're going to clean that out. And you're going to want to get as much of it out as you possibly can, so you do not clog your new fuel filter or suck it up into your new pump. And sometimes some of it's going to be stuck. So what you can do is you can grab a pick or a flathead screwdriver and you can just do some scraping just to remove that dirt and grime off the bottom. All right, so now that we've got this all cleaned out, we're gonna set this off to the side and we're gonna work on actually removing the pump. Now in this pump, you can see you have your fuel filter right here and your fuel pumps right here, and this is all gonna be held on with a little clip here at the bottom. So be easy, you don't wanna break these parts, but you're just gonna pull down on this and you're gonna pull down on this tab and this will release the pump. So now that we have the pump released, we're gonna pull the clip out. Again, a push tab on the clip and jiggle it out. Sometimes they're gonna be a little difficult to remove, but this one kind of comes right out. So this is your fuel pump, fuel filter, little rubber boot here at the top, and we're gonna go into our quantum fuel box here. And the first thing we're gonna do is compare and make sure that our fuel pumps are gonna be the exact same. They should be the same, but sometimes you get parts that do not match up. So looking at this, you have your positive on the left side, negative on the right, positive on the left, negative on the right. Matching up the connectors, they're going to be the same. So this looks like we have an exact match here. So let's pull that out. Some of this stuff you're not going to need. This is going to be a new clip. However, we are not going to be replacing the clip on this. The wiring looks fine, so it's not something that we're going to be replacing at this time. If you want to do it, we can definitely set up another video to show you how to replace the wiring. So we're going to put some of this stuff off to the side. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out which fuel filter is going to be the right one for this bike. Now, like I said, these quantum fuel pumps come with multiple filters in here. So we're going to have to try to remove this one and see which one's going to match up to it. So this will pop off, and let's take it and try to match this up. And I think we found the winner right here. So as you can see, the connection, let's unwrap this here for a second. As you can see, the bottom looks very similar. The connection tube looks very similar. So I think this one's going to be the one that goes on this bike. And like I said, they come with multiple for different applications. You can save them, throw them away, or just save them for a future date, but these aren't going to fit onto our bike here. So we've got our replacement pump, we've got our replacement filter. Now our little black rubber grommet, they're going to give you another one in the kit, so we're going to use that. We're going to put the old one off to the side. And as you can see, there's a bunch of extra parts in here. These are miscellaneous hoses, seals, gaskets, and all of that. This is another one that we're going to replace. This is the gasket that goes on the bottom of the fuel tank. Quantum's nice enough to throw these into the kit so that you don't have a fuel leak out of the bottom of your tank. So we're going to end up reusing that, putting that one in. Here's a little grommet that goes at the top. This one's going to stay on the old fuel pump. However, we're going to replace it with a new one on the new fuel pump. So this should just slide right onto here. Just like that. So now that our pump's looking the same as the old pump, we can go ahead and we can start putting it back together. So when we're putting this together, in this bag, if we haven't lost it, there should be a little clip. We're going to take it out of the other one. Oh, there it is. So this little clip will go on the bottom, but what we're going to do is we're going to set this up the way that it was set up before. We'll put our little base on here. Actually, sorry, we're going to put the filter on first. And this will slide on here. Again, be careful, don't force any parts that don't want to go on there. And then you have a retaining clip. These are sometimes pretty hard to get on there, so what we're going to do is we are going to try to figure out a way to push this down. Sometimes you can use your fingers, other times you might need to use a pick to help push it down. This will hold your filter onto the pump. I'm going to switch tools here to a small flathead to get more grip on it. Like I said, sometimes these are a little bit tricky to get on there. Try this again here. And don't get frustrated because sometimes they are hard to press onto here. All right, so now that we got that on, what we're gonna do is we're gonna replace the rubber seal at the bottom. And we're gonna put our pump back into the bike, into the housing, excuse me. So we're just gonna slide this in. And very carefully push it back into the housing and snap our bottom together here. Forgot to put the wire back in beforehand, so let's pull that back out really quick. Connect our wire, just like that, and we'll stick it back in there. Like that. So there's your replacement. So now all we got to do is just put it back into the tank and bolt it back together and put it onto the bike. Now we're going to finish putting the pump back into our housing. So the Quantum pumps did not come with a new O-ring for here, so it can either be replaced or reused. However, just make sure it's seated on the nipple right there. And what we're going to do is we're going to line this pump up with that nipple, and we are going to push it down. Make sure this all gets pushed inside. And make sure that this gets into the housing, because this is what seals your fuel off. So now that we've got our pump back in the base housing, when you put it in, you're going to want to make sure that this metal rod is lined up inside of the housing, and you also have one on the other side. So now that this is all in here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our ground screws back in. So we're going to place our clip on, put the wire there, and put our screw in. And we're going to jump around to the other side, and we're going to do the exact same thing. Again, to be careful that we do not bend the fuel pump float. So we're going to grab the screw, have to put it through the wire first. I like to start these by hand so you don't cross thread them if you're going to be using a drill or an impact. Great. And so now we're going to come around and we are going to connect our power wires. So if you remember, this one is going to be on the right side. And we're going to put our nut. There was no washer on this one. Sometimes it's a little tricky, it's pretty tight, and if you got big fingers, it makes it a little bit harder. And we are going to put the left wire on now. And we're going to snug these up with our 7mm open end. And these do not need to be overly tight. Do not want to break the studs off. So we're just going to get it tightened in here. And it's going to be not too much force, but just enough to keep it snug. We're going to go over here to the other side. And what I like to do is hold the wire so the wire doesn't spin. Connected. So now our fuel pump assembly is back together with a brand new pump and a brand new filter down here. Now we're going to get the tank and we're going to put it back into the tank here. So just a moment, we'll clean up and get the tank. Put our tank back on the workbench. If you remember, we are going to be replacing this O-ring. This came with the Quantum pump, so that's really great. We'll pull the old one out. Picks are great to have around the garage. They can help you get out seals that you can or disconnect clips. So we're going to put that to the side. We're going to take the new one and we're going to set it in there. And it should fit pretty good. And this is going to prevent the gas from leaking out of the bottom of the tank. So now what we're going to do is we're going to insert the pump back in. Now, taking pictures was great because you know the orientation of the pump. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the float back in there and carefully put the pump back into the bike. And like I said, sometimes it's a little bit tight of a fit, so you might have to try to find the right angle to get it into there. And just like that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start all 5 of the screws by hand here, and then we will tighten them up with the impact. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th one is down under here. And what I like to do when I tighten down anything that's round or any cover is do a crisscross pattern. So if you're going to start here, jump all the way across to down here, and then back up to here, and then we're going to jump over to here, and then we're going to jump over to here. And this makes it so that it tightens it down evenly and you're not going to have any leaks down the road. So we're going to start up here and we're going to just snug it up. We're not going to tighten it all the way right now, but we're going to go down to here, up to here, and then across over here. Now we're going to go back through and we're going to do one last tightening. For people who aren't experienced in a garage, it's probably best if you actually use a regular ratchet. So we're going to grab a regular ratchet and we're going to put our connector on here, and we're just going to tighten it up just a little bit, just so it's snug. These will strip really easily, so just be careful when you're putting them in. You can always go back and tighten them later if you need to, but you can't fix the threads if they strip out. So we're just gonna tighten it down. And again, right here. And again, right here. And again, right here. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna test to make sure no fuel is actually leaking from our fuel pump. The way a fuel pump works is that when the current is pushed through the pump, it will pump fuel out of this nipple into your bike. Now, if you're seeing fuel coming out of this nipple when the pump isn't running, there's something wrong inside of your pump. There could be a bad O-ring, it could be a bad pump. There could be numerous things that are wrong if you're seeing fuel come out of this without any electricity going into the pump. So what I like to do after I'm done with the fuel pump is I like to just take the tank and hold it upside down like this. And as you can see, we have no fuel flowing from the pump, which is good. And we're also gonna check for leaks around the fuel pump housing, which it looks like we're pretty good there right now also. So let's get this back over to the bike and we'll put it back on and we'll fire the bike up. Now that we got our tank over by our bike, we're gonna rest it down here. We're gonna put this sleeve that we took out so we didn't lose it or drop it. We're gonna slide that back into here and we're gonna set the tank down in its position. So we usually start at the front here and then let the back fall into place. So now that we're in place, we're gonna go and we're gonna grab our long 5mm Allen bolt, and we are gonna have to lift the tank just a little bit because it's gonna sit too low. We're gonna line this hole up down here, and we're gonna put our bolt in there. We're gonna come in, use our impact, and snug that up. So now that we've got the back pivot bolt in, now we can lift the tank up here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna connect the fuel hose first. So if you see you have a little cutout here and there's a cutout on the bottom, they're gonna need to align with this little clip right here. So you can see there's a raised part here. There's also a raised part on the bottom. And we're gonna try to line our hose up with that. And nice and easily, we're just gonna push it in there until you hear it click. And that's it. And the last thing we're gonna do is connect our fuel pump wiring, which it only goes in there one way. So this is the way it goes with the clip, with the slot. And you hear it click. And as I said, if he had the hoses, if they weren't removed for the vent hoses, we would be putting a couple hoses down here for the vent hoses. However, on this bike, they have been removed. So now we're gonna set the tank back down, being careful not to kink this hose as we're putting the tank back down. So we're gonna set it back into place here. We're gonna grab our 2 front bolts. And sometimes you're gonna need to kind of jiggle the tank around to get the alignment right. What I like to do is lift it up and line the screw up with the hole and start these by hand. We're gonna go to the other side here and do the exact same thing. So now that we have these started, we're gonna tighten them up with our impact here. And our tank is back on. And we're gonna put our seat back on. You can see our tabs in the back. We'll slide under here and we will align our hole. And we're gonna put our seat bolt back in. Come back on the other side and put our plastic back on. And if you remember, we pulled it back to get it off, so we are going to slide it forward to get it off. And just like that. Now, it's not pumping. Make sure our bike is in neutral. And if you hear really closely, I'm going to turn it off and turn it back on. And if you can hear on the camera, you can hear the fuel pump priming now. And let's see if we can fire it up. So thanks for watching the video today, me changing out the 2006 Suzuki GSXR 1000 fuel pump. Please click, subscribe, leave comments below, ask questions, visit our website at wideopenmoto.com if you need any parts or need to contact us for anything. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next video.